Asic.to, which is the American version of the Vanish firmware for Bitmain Bitcoin miners. Specifically for this episode, the S19 J Pro has finally released their auto-tuning update to the public. I'm gonna put this thing back down, it's heavy. With the custom firmware, you can set this thing to your desired hash speed. Whether that means burning the candle at both ends, who cares about the electrical cost? Give me all the Bitcoins possible in the time I have, which would make sense if you either have a lot of solar power or found some really cheap way to get electricity. Or you can run an S19 J Pro, let's say 100 terahash at 70 terahash, which will give you about the same efficiency as the newer S19 XP 140. That's good if you're riding right on the line of profitability for electricity costs, which this morning was about 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And right now, looking at Musk Miner's price sheet, S19 J Pros are about half the price of S19 XPs. So as my wife would say, half a dime a dozen. Or you can run them anywhere between. You get to choose. And with an auto-tuning firmware, it even makes running them at stock speeds a little more efficient. Because this thing's not like a normal computer. There are a couple hundred chips in here. And in reality, each chip in here would prefer a slightly different clock speed at any given voltage to run its best. Picture, I guess, Wonder Woman next to the guy who played the Mountain in Game of Thrones, both jogging along at 4 miles per hour. It's gonna take a bit more energy for half Thor to move his 400-pound frame at the same speed as Gal Gadot. And this box is made up of a mixture of 378 The Mountains and Wonder Womans, each with slight variations in their physical makeup and efficiency capabilities. All right, here comes the effect smoke. When you're running the stock firmware, the machine just sends every chip the same settings, the same voltage and clock speed, and you end up with an average of, for this machine, 100 terahash. Some chips are slower, some chips are faster, but all are brought down to the same level and they run at 100 terahash together. The newer Bitmain firmware has a low power mode, which is still just a global clock speed and voltage, but everything runs slower, which makes them run cooler, quieter, and about 30% more efficient. And when I say efficient, I mean you do run the machine slower, about 70 or 80 terahash, rather than the stock 100 terahash on the same machine. So 70 or 80% of the speed, but you only use 56 or 58% of the power. So you get less speed, but you use less power to get that less speed, which means it's more efficient. So you end up getting more Bitcoins for the same money spent on electricity. It essentially allows you to buy Bitcoins for less than Bitcoins cost, but you just have to buy them really slowly, if that makes sense. You're buying them through electricity. With the auto-tune, though, the firmware will run through the machine and examine each set of 3 chips. It'll try them out at different clock speeds a few times at different voltages, lowering the voltage a little bit, trying them again, lowering the voltage a little bit more, trying them again, with the aim of seeing where the chips are still stable with the least amount of electricity being pumped through them. By doing that, the firmware is finding the maximum speed that each of the 300-something chips can run at a given voltage. So less power, more speed, more Bitcoin per watt. Or on the other side of that same equation, you can find out the most voltage that each chip can take before it becomes unstable. So it can run our little half Thors and Wonder Womans faster and faster until they start to trip and fall, cracking the whip behind each set of 3 little chippy horses so we can get the most out of the machine. You can probably run this S19 J Pro 100 terahash at about 140 terahash, but it'll suck down like 4,500 watts, be super inefficient, but it'll get more Bitcoins more faster. You do this after the price has shot up and you don't give a shit about the price of electricity anymore because you're filthy fucking rich. With this machine I have right here, running the Asic.to auto-tune to be at the stock speed, it ends up pulling about 2,700 watts of power from the wall to end up with 104 terahash instead of 100 terahash. 105 terahash? I can't remember. Roll the clip. This machine is pulling 13.4. I don't know if you can read that. 13.6, 13.3, 13.4. And we're at 202 volts. So 13.4 amps at 202 volts is 2,700 watts. Where's my camera? 2,700 watts. For 100 terahash, we're using 300 less watts than before. So just by installing this firmware, I can get like 10% more Bitcoins without any additional heat and without any additional electrical costs. Asic.to charges 2.8% of your hash power to achieve this, which leaves you, after all the dirty math is done, with the equivalent of a 100 terahash machine, giving you about 107 terahash worth of value. I know I said it runs at 105, and I know I said that they take 2.8%, but it's using 400 less watts than normal, so I just did weird math. If you're already using this firmware, you can just go download the update and then just follow whatever I'm doing on the screen now to perform the update, because I forgot what it looks like when I'm recording this now. If you're on stock firmware to start with, you're gonna need to do a couple things first. It's really easy, but you will need a micro SD card that's either 4 gigabytes or 8 gigabytes, a tiny little micro SD card. with a tiny little capacity. Big ones just aren't recognized by the control boards for some reason. Download the disk image file, then go download a program called Balena Etcher. Links for both of these things in the description. It works on both Mac and PC. It's super easy. You'll just point Balena Etcher towards an SD card, point it towards the file, and then burn it onto the disk that way, rather than just moving the files over. That won't work. Next, you'll shut off your Asic, put this little bad boy into the little slot on the control board. You do have to make sure you get the right version. When you look at the list, there's a lot to see, and it can be a bit confusing. For it to work, you have to either have a BeagleBone control board or a Xilinx control board. Who knows if I'm saying those things correctly. You can tell the difference between the two. This is the front of your miner where the Ethernet port is. On a BeagleBone control board, the SD card slot is all the way around on the back. You'll have to take the top off your machine. And on a Xilinx board, it's right next to the Ethernet, so it'll be sticking out the front of the machine. BeagleBone, Xilinx. Take a quick look. So if you have a BeagleBone board, it's this file, and if you have a Xilinx board, it's this file. So if you look at how these files are put together, it's an S19J Pro with the BB board, and I'm running it on an SD card, so it's this file. If you have a Xilinx board, it's this file. If your board doesn't have any SD slot on it at all, you have an AM logic board and you cannot use this. There is a way to do it, and Asic.to can actually install it over the internet for you. If you have a big farm, still contact them, they'll do it for you. Your password should still be root, but it might have changed to admin, so try one of those things. It's weird that it's not always the same, but life isn't fair, so what do you want? Here's how to set up your auto-tune. So here's the main screen. Over on the left, you're gonna click Mining, click Performance up here, then choose a preset. Once you've done an auto-tune for a given setting, it will remember it. So you won't have to re-auto-tune if you switch from efficiency to superpower or right in the middle. So for the 100 terahash setting, it looks like I have not auto-tuned it yet on this miner. So here we go. Then click Save, then click Apply, and it'll restart your miner. After it initializes, you can see it says auto-tuning. If you want to watch what it's doing, you can go over to these logs down here and choose the auto-tune tab. On the performance screen, these three big boxes are the three hash boards on your machine. And each of these little boxes is a chip. And you can see that every chip is running at a slightly different speed. And the firmware is going through trying stuff out to see where they can run their best. It's 98 degrees in the warehouse, and I'm getting 60 C temperatures on my miner on the hot side. So with the expanded fan and the shroud thing, it doesn't matter how hot it is outside, you can run miners. So there's links down below to get the firmware, and if you head over to Asic.to, it'll redirect you to a Telegram group where people can help you troubleshoot if something goes wrong and something's confusing about the process. Or you can go into my Discord, link down below for that too. If you're looking for a place to buy Bitcoin miners right now, I personally believe that once this BlackRock ETF thing goes through, Bitcoin price has no choice but to go up and keep going up. So miners are never going to be as cheap as they are now. You can contact Blake, another link below, or through my Discord, link below. Thank you for watching. Now go auto-tune all of your Bitcoin miners so they run more efficiently. So right now I'm on the 100 terahash preset, auto-tuned. And I'm hashing at about 106, average 101, but I'm hashing at 106 this moment. Just keep this going. Let's just switch to the super efficient one. So this is going to try to hash at 76 terahash. Turn that green screen off? I can. Turn pink on? I can. I think that's all it's going to do. I think it is drop the voltage down to 12.4, done initializing. That doesn't look like it's going to change. This is right around 78 terahash. So yeah, let's get a reading. 8.5 amps. 8.6 amps. Ooh, something's beeping. That's scary. We're at 206 volts, 8.5 amps. 8.5 amps, 1751 watts. So you can run an S19J Pro, 1751 watts, but you're still getting 78 terahash. And you can do some more math. 1751 3,000ths is 58% as much power, but you're getting 78, well, we'll just call it 76 out of 100. So for 76% of the hash rate, you only have to use 58% of the electricity. More efficiency, super efficient. Way to go.